I am going to invite the lovely Lavonda Jeffries to come up and join me on stage. We're going to start with a... and the crowd goes wild. There it is. I think we'll stand for a minute while we walk them through the first part, and then maybe we'll have a seat after if we feel comfortable. But yeah, time to engage. So we're going to start by doing a little exercise, not physical exercise. Although we may get to that if everybody doesn't get going here. Okay, so you'll see some papers on your table. If everyone will kind of take one of those. I know my marketing team was like, really, we're going to have paper on the table? But sometimes a good pen and paper in your hand is an amazing thing, right? After we just talked about all that great technology. But we are going to do this for a minute. So we want to take a minute and let you each chart where you are in your global journey. And for account managers or partners or other people in the room, maybe think about a customer or think about something else that you can apply this to. There are many ways to apply it. But it's important to know where you are in your journey and to sit back. In our busy lives, it's really easy to just do the next task, do the next task. Someone asked us to do it, so we got to get it done. But to take a minute and really have thoughtful consideration of the tasks you're doing or the things that you're thinking about doing and where they fall on this matrix. So simple thing. Down the one side, we've got, is it easy or hard? So the ease side, and then the value, low or high value, right? So as you think about your program, like I said before, where you are in your journey, whether it's expansion, whether it's a mature program, whatever it might be, just take a minute and plot some of those things. So we listed some here as food for thought. Plot some of those things. Are you revamping your policy? Do you need to do an ROI model? Is there someone in your organization that is just on the naughty list all the time and you've got to figure out what to do with them? How are you going to meet that savings goal? Maybe someone from finance came down or C-level and said, we've got to cut out, $2 million, and guess what? Travel gets a big piece of that. That happens all the time, right? I think we just have money sitting around. So as we go down this list, form of payments. Do you have to roll out form of payments in new countries? That's issuing credit cards in countries, things like that. So again, we're going to give you a few minutes just to kind of plot some of those things that are easy, hard, where they fall for you on that chart. And then as we go through some of the next sessions, Lavonda and I are going to start with how we vet and the things that we need to think about as we start doing some of these projects and moving further down our journey. And then some of the next presenters are going to really talk about the roadmap. When you get to the roadmap, some of the deeper dive into those considerations. And then last but not least, after our break, we will have our last group come up and talk about really the execution of that and some case studies and things like that that you can really take. So as you use this chart, I encourage you to take a few minutes and plot now. And then as you hear the different presentations and things, you might want to move some things around or add some new things that you didn't think about.
One call out I would say on this table is think about not only where your company is in your journey, but think about how easy or hard it is to move these things through your organization, because that will play a huge part in the lift and the value of we're looking at adjusting.
I know when we talk to customers, sometimes you might feel like you're a one-man band. Someone said that to me this morning at breakfast. One-man band, or maybe this isn't your day job, right? Travel's not your day job. So you really have to be deliberate and considerate of the types of things you're spending your time on. And you want those to be easier, if at all possible, and high-value things that you spend your time on. So I'm just going to share kind of the cheat sheet for this. Once you have plotted some things, and as you go throughout your day, Obviously, these are some of the things you want to get to. If it's falling in that category of easy and low value, maybe you want to investigate how you can get that off your plate. Maybe that's not something you should be spending your time on. Hard and low value, don't do it anymore. Or figure out why that's so hard. You know, maybe you're approaching it wrong. Maybe you need to turn it on its head. All of those things. The easy, high value, obviously those are the things we want to spend our time doing. The low-hanging fruit, sometimes we would say, to get those off your plate and get to the next thing. And then obviously in the far right, the high value but harder things are things you want to do, but look at ways to, again, turn them on their head or maybe do them a little differently. So.
Has everyone had a chance to plot a few items?
We're gonna? I actually think silence is golden sometimes, but not today. All right, great. So while you continue to do that and think about the things that you're required to do in your program today or that you've been asked to do, and I know that some of you think, how am I gonna get that done? How in the world am I gonna get that done? And I know from the account management team, they're thinking, I really need to help my client do these things, but how are we gonna do that? So we're gonna dig into some things over the next short amount of time we have and hopefully come up with some answers to that. All right, so one thing I wanna do is for a minute explore why. Why do we need to globalize our programs? Why don't we just let everyone do what they want in their country? It's interesting when you talk to, depending on your particular business, your C-level might think, why do we need to do this? Just let everyone do what they want. Other C-level folks might say, why are we letting them do anything they want to? They need to do everything that we say. You're letting them get away with too much. So, and everything in between, right? So generally, here are the reasons why global consolidation happens and why most people decide to consolidate, whether it's one country, the 80-20 rule, or your entire program. The first would be visibility. So visibility is really to see where the money's being spent. A lot of people come to us and you have no idea how much money is being spent in those countries. We go to our partners many times and say, we're gonna give you this lovely client to service. Thank you so much. We have no idea how much they spend today. Right? But you will know, because that's a really important reason to start having your program be consolidated and to go through someone like One Global who can help you do that. Governance. So governance is another thing that is really important. You want to be able to not only understand where the money is getting spent, but the suppliers it's being spent with, how you're pulling that program together. Are you getting the advantages? All of those things. So your department heads can have their budgets and know what they're spending or not spending on their budgets. So that governance is very important. Also for us as your travel management company, or we will be your travel management company, to help you with that governance so that we can put programs in place for you, whether it's from a policy perspective or anything else that might come along where we need to track it. Tracking your unused tickets, that's really important. The third being cost savings. A lot of times people come to us and say, we want to consolidate our program because we're gonna get great cost savings. Those procurement people, I'm sorry if some of you are in the room, and I'm sure you are, we love you. But cost savings, it doesn't always mean you're going to save money on your airline contracts if you put a global program in place. It will on your hotel program, it will on some other things, but we need to help you keep a real gauge of where that cost savings can come from and how we can work with you to get to that $2 million or whatever the goal is that's set forth for your organization and for you as a department. And then duty of care. So Duty of care, we are going to dig into that a little bit in a little bit, and it's such an important thing. It's such an important thing today, not just from an international perspective, but certainly domestically and every other which way. So we have a great session today with some folks who are really going to have you kind of turn duty of care on your head a little bit and think about some things that maybe you haven't thought about in your organization before. So are there any other reasons out there that you have for consolidating or moving your program forward that we haven't talked about? Anyone have anything else to add?
No, looks like we hit it.
Wow. Looks like we're going to be doing jumping jacks soon.
I think so.
Okay. I'm going to let Lavonda take the next one here.
Perfect. Okay, so now that we know the reasons why, the value of consolidating, we're going to go into some of the underlying drivers for consolidating a program. And the purpose of this is for you to really think more about the why behind it, how your organization moves things forward, and your overall corporate culture. So you really need to understand your country profile and spend. So if you've got 5 countries that you're wanting to consolidate into a global program, as Lisa mentioned previously, we really do need to know what that spend total is, how that country operates, how they manage expenses, all of those things. Language and cultural nuances. Do they need local language? Or does your organization say that this is an English primary organization and we're going to manage everything in English? So those are some of the nuances that we really need to understand when you're thinking about the drivers of a program. From a technology and content access perspective, we all know that content is crazy. So do we need NDC content? Do you need low-cost carrier content or rail content? Those are some of the things that you need to consider as you're thinking about the drivers for moving into a consolidated program. Travel and expense policy, as I mentioned before. Do you have a global program? A global travel policy, or is it country by country, or is it regional? How can we make this a global program and maybe a global policy and maybe have some regional carve-outs? So those are some things to consider as well. Payment and financial infrastructure. That can vary by country as well. Do you need corporate card in one country? Do you need invoicing in another country? How will you manage that across your entire program? So that's something else to consider. Some special service needs. Do you need VIP servicing? Do your travelers need to be able to pick up the phone and call someone for after-hours support? Or can it all be managed through technology? That's something else to consider as you're thinking about consolidating. And also, how does your organization manage these things when you think about some of the other global rollouts that have happened within that organization? Lastly, again, as Lisa mentioned, the cost and value analysis. Is it efficient? Does it make sense to consolidate? How can we have it consistent across the entire program? There's lots of nuances around cost efficiencies. Are we going to see improved service levels? Are we going to see improved traveler experience overall? So those are just some of the other underlying cost considerations when you're thinking about the different drivers for moving your program forward. So you want to identify the critical due diligence. You want to think about who you need to go to in your organization to get some of this vital information before you even start the conversations around globalizing your program. What vetting has been done, with each of the regional contacts, that are going to be managing the different countries. So those are just some of the things to think about as you're moving through and having this discussion, having these thoughts internally. Think about these different drivers and some of the underlying decisions with each driver.
If I could just add for a minute, I think, again, just taking a pause and thinking about maybe some of the things you put on your matrix. But often we get to implementation and all of a sudden you have someone who doesn't want to go along with the program.
Yes.
Or you have a form of payment issue because all of a sudden we need invoicing in a particular country. Or you didn't account for something going on in a region. And I think that's really, from this first vetting discussion, it's really important that you look inside the organization and make sure that you're asking those questions and digging in before you get to that point of implementation, because certainly the last thing we want to happen is that you get into implementation and now we've got to stop everything because we've got to figure something out that maybe we didn't get fully vetted within your organization to begin with. And we have an amazing implementation team. Karen's here today along with others, and you know, they do a great job helping clients through that journey. But if it is something you haven't vetted internally, it can really stop progress on the footprint that you've laid out.
And Lisa is speaking from experience when she says we've had to stop implementations because we don't have the information. And it really can cause a hiccup in that and some serious delays.
Karen, anything you want to add? You're so experienced in all of this. Why don't you jump in? Stand up, please.
Everything that Lavonda and Lisa are saying is so true. Myself and my team, we do encounter quite a bit of, oh my gosh, I didn't know about that, or I didn't think about that. And truly, the best thing that I can say is, yes, talk to your regional representatives, talk to your boots on the ground people that are traveling, that are maybe running an office manager, executive assistant, what have you. Really understand what is going on now in that market. Take notes, summarize, have them review it, make a plan internally in pencil. Bring it to us, bring it to Lisa, Lavonda, whoever is helping to negotiate the contract so that you can, again, consider hubbing markets. Or, wow, we don't have a corporate credit card program, invoice is really going to be laborious. I've already talked to my finance person, I talked to the person in the market that does reconciliations. The more you know your travel program at that local level, the less interference and delays that you're going to have. We do have project plans, we do have milestones, we do put dates in pencil of things to reach, but in my experience and my team's experience, every onboarding program does have a hiccup. It just depends on how big that hiccup is. So preparation is so key. We pass information to our partners, Travel Path, Ferry to whomever from Mexico. We like to give them information in advance. We do an agency-to-agency call, kind of scope that project. And in that call, we say, here's what we know, and here are some things that could be hiccups. So again, making sure that our partner agencies are well prepared as well. That when we get to those conversations, when we get to day one of onboarding, we just have a better grasp on what we need to accomplish.
Wow, thank you,
Perfect.
Karen.
Thank
Round
you,
of applause for
Karen.
you.
That was perfect.
Karen is a great example of our very experienced teams and doing that on the fly. Thank you, Karen.
And what's perfect is that rolls right into program governance. Some of the things to consider before you start consolidating your program, you want to make sure that you have your governance structure set up. So you want to determine who's got decision-making power. Is the decision-making going to be sitting globally with you, the travel manager, and some of your counterparts, or are we making decisions at the local level as well? Is it going to be a committee decision? Where does that sit? Having that structure set up initially does save a lot during the implementation process as well. Roles. Is the program going to be centralized within one place, one person, as we talked about with the client this morning, one person managing the program, or will it be a team? Will it be a global person and then again regional contacts as well? So you want to consider what the structure will be. How are you going to communicate the changes, whether that be internally amongst the committee or to your travelers? What's that communication plan going to look like? That's something that you want to consider as well. How are you going to monitor the program? What does that 360 monitoring review process look like? And again, we're talking about not just monitoring the TMC, but also within the committee that's making the decisions around globalizing the program. How are you all going to monitor that, that outtake and how well you're doing there? You want to make sure you have your stakeholder buy-in, but you have to first identify who those stakeholders are. And as we talked about previously, it's about reaching out to those regional contacts, making sure they're on board, making sure they're, you know, they understand. For a lot of you all, those stakeholders are going to be your EAs. It's not even going to be your C-suite. It's going to be the EAs supporting the C-suite who you need to get on board with this change, because we know they truly run the programs. You want to make sure that you have engagement at all levels as you're going through this process. So you want to make sure that you've got the EA engagement, you've got your leadership's engagement, all the way up to the CEO, because if the CEO isn't on board, you know, you're going to have a problem somewhere along the line. You also want to think about the WIFMs. What's in it for me? You know, how does consolidating a program support you as the travel manager? You know, are you going to get better reporting? Are you going to have better global account management relationships? What do you gain from going through this consolidation process? And then lastly, of course, the traveler experience. How is this going to improve their experience? How is it going to improve any traveler feedback? Is it going to reduce noise, or is it going to increase noise? And if it does increase noise, is it just temporary, or is it something that's going to be long-term? Yep, so those are just some of the things you want to think about as you're creating your governance board for your program, to consolidate your program.
So before we move on to the next slide, maybe I'll just ask our community partners in the room, is there something that's important to you from that new customer implementation, you know, that first call, a piece of information, something that they want to vet, that you need vetted, that is maybe country specific or more important in a particular region than another? Any regional or country insights? I know I'm putting you all on the spot. Barb.
I'm not a community partner.
You are.
I'm not the person that Lisa's asking that question of, but while our community partners are thinking through that, I would love, either by show of hands or stand up if you'd like, for the travel buyers in the room, how many of you, and I'll tell you what the two choices are, were told to globally consolidate your travel program? And how many of you proactively brought the recommendation to your company to globally consolidate the program? So, by show of hands, how many of you were told, for reasons like duty of care, cost savings, to go and get a single TMC globally? Who was told to do that? Well, I see very constantly. Get out there. You were told. Okay. All right, perfect, interesting. So does everybody else feel the other fit's true, or is somebody going to offer me an alternative perspective? Okay, tell me. So tell me about the mixed bag.
I told them, and they said no, we're sticking to our original approach.
Okay. Okay. Did they say why?
Because our leadership said so.
Okay.
That's the camp on it.
Okay. Do you want to share? Yeah.
We want to go to a global program because of duty of care. But we get a lot of pushback from them. So we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Is anybody surprised by the mixed bag of answers in the room? No. Right. So it makes this part really super relevant, because where the drive is coming from matters to some extent, and to some extent it doesn't. You still have mandates from leadership, and that's usually the C-suite to do it, and you still hit some of the resistance because they think this is easy. And that's not a criticism. They don't live in the day-to-day global consolidation. So hey, you consolidate, who picks up your trash, you consolidate your whatever, your law firm, or you know, whatever the example may be, and some of those types of services translate more easily, I'll say, than something as personal that touches as many people in your company that have to use a travel management company is exponentially larger than any other thing that you could possibly procure. So I think it's a big part of it. So just, and committee buyers, I just want you some time to be thinking about that. That's where the context matters, because the challenge is, regardless of how consolidation is being driven, you still have to overcome, when the rubber hits the road, travelers who go, you know what, I don't need you, I do this on my own, my brother-in-law owns a travel company, I've got great points with some of our great suppliers, and they can just go direct and all of those kinds of things. So thank you for indulging me, that's actually super helpful, and probably more conversation around how do you overcome those things in a really tangible way to be good discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Barb.
Wonderful. I think so many of the things that we are asked to do or come in contact with are require education, right? You might be told to do something and everything, but definitely requires education. So, partners, who wants to volunteer? Mark?
Yes. Besides everything that you guys said, and from the list here, what I think that is very important is the engagement on all levels, right? Because if you don't have engagement, it's going to be very difficult, especially from the leadership. One thing that it's very important to us is data, right? Sometimes it's very difficult to get data like from, a third market or a secondary market, because a lot of times the program is not even consolidated locally, so we understand that it's difficult, but any data you can get is maybe interviewing the travelers or the executive assistants, all the stakeholders of that country's travel program will make much easier for them. The more data we have, the better will be, our assessment of the travel program, and we're going to be able to give a more assertive options for the travel program.
Wonderful.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Mark.
Mark.
Anyone else?
Donna, I'm going to pick on you.
I was actually going to agree with Mark, actually. For me, it's data. It's having that data in country or local level, so that you can understand what you need to deliver on, what the growth strategy is around that customer. And I suppose understanding the nuances in that marketplace for that customer. What's their form of payment in the UK? That's a large challenge for us. It's not necessarily credit card like it is in the States. And the data gives us information in terms of what suppliers they're using, what content they need, which is also, we know fragmentation of content is huge in our industry as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And let's define data for a minute. We all want data, right? Mm-hmm. What data do we want? What does it mean? What is data? So it could be the number of travelers you have in that region. It could be how many local hotel contracts you have. We would love to know what you spend on air, car, and hotel and train everywhere, but sometimes you just don't have that, and we understand that. So if it goes back to the beginning where we were talking about vetting and what's important to vet, those are important questions to ask, and it's not always just about, can you get a report to hand to me to tell me what you do there? A lot of times it's conversation, right? It's conversation with those local people. How do you travel? When do you travel? Are you traveling more international? Are you traveling within your region? Are you using low-cost carriers? All of those things that, again, when we dig into the weeds in implementation, usually, we start finding out these tidbits. But if we knew them up front when we're vetting those things and when we're really trying to mine for data, then it would make everything else go much smoother. So data is a beautiful thing. It doesn't always have to be a number on a page. So, all right, anyone else? I like it. Okay, we'll move on. Our last little bit is just to quickly touch on this because you've got some great people who know a lot more about technology than we do. Some of the technology drivers, again, that you want to think about, what's important for your program, what's not important for your program, and why, so that we know the direction, or you can plot in our next presentations, the roadmap that you're going to go on. So approvals. Do you have approvals today? Who has approvals? In what country are there approvals? Do approvers sit in different countries? That's becoming a much more prevalent thing.
Yes.
So profile tools, how is your HR system? Tell us all about it. We want to know because that goes into those profile tools. How do you want your data? Do you want to look at it monthly? Do you want to look at it on every trip? We've got tools who can do all of that. We just need to get the right ones set up for you. Expense reporting. Some of you might have Concur Expense. Some of you might have other expense tools. They might be connected today, they might not. Again, you have to think about that. What is your global goal? And also, what are you doing in region? Because we want to manage the change management piece as closely as possible. And then mobile apps. As Barb mentioned before, those mobile apps are going to be point of entry for new technology, for all of those things. And then traveler tracking tools. It goes back to duty of care. It's part of your program, whether you have a third party employed or not. Knowing where people are and what they're doing, if you have to find them for a myriad of reasons that we'll talk about, is really, really important. So all of those suite of technologies and more to come with Marketplace and M&E and all those other things that are out there. So technology, as our CIO Ivan would say, is moving light speed faster than ever before. And so you'll hear more about that tomorrow. All right, I think we are finished. Thank you so much for your attention, for your contributions. I really appreciate that. And we're going to move on to our next one. Thanks, Lavonda.
Of course, thank you, Lisa.